For people of color, America's relationship with the word freedom has been a complicated one, often filled with more trials than triumphs. It continues to take us on a journey with individuals still fighting for civil rights, economic equity, social justice, creative expression, and much more. So when the Wiley College film crew set out on a quest to find out what freedom meant to them and others, both past and present, many complexities of a multi-generational conversation were revealed as they traveled across the country. 1,700 miles, a journey to explore freedom.
Freedom is not easy. From making a documentary of it to actually acquiring it, no sense of freedom is easy.
Freedom is interchangeable, really.
Freedom for me would just be letting go a lot of that trauma. I would get to the point of freedom where I've healed from it.
Freedom to us, I think, really meant we had our own identity.
What we aspire for in life is peace and freedom.
If you look at, what you've learned from kindergarten to now, even being at a HBCU, there's so much that I learned that I didn't even know was, a thing.
When segregation and discrimination were widespread in the United States, many Black Americans were denied access to higher education. In response to this injustice, a number of historically Black colleges and universities, HBCUs, were founded to provide educational opportunities for Black individuals. Wiley College was founded in 1873 by the Methodist Episcopal Church. In the early 1900s, the college's debate team gained national recognition for their skill and success in debating against white institutions. The legacy was forever immortalized in the film The Great Debaters starring Denzel Washington. For many students over the years, Wiley gave them their first taste of real accomplishment and freedom, sometimes even second chances, and always a deeper sense of pride for their community.
The Brooks, the couple from Wiley, they were just so funny.
I am from Middletown, Ohio. So I cannot say that I experienced prejudicial things there, but I always went to an integrated school. Never did I go to any other kind. And that's why my parents said that I wasn't getting the proper knowledge of what my life was about. So I had to go to a Black school.
Mrs. Brooks, knowing that she came from out of state, just like me, I came from New Jersey, we both had that same culture shock. It was crazy coming here in Marshall, Texas.
We left on a Sunday at 8 o'clock in the morning by train. We pulled into the Marshall train station at 5 a.m. This young man jumped out and said, "Oh, let me take your bags. I'm gonna help you." Because he said, "You're gonna be my girlfriend." We were honored 2 years ago at the Delta's 50th sweetheart party. And I opened it up by saying, 50 years ago on September 25th, I met this young man, and the rest is history.
They were just intriguing, their stories, and I think that's one of my favorite parts of them. It was their stories. It was the fact that they could draw you in. I did everything that I could get my hands on so that when my high school senior year came, I had scholarships from so many different places. I did Delta Gyms, I was in production. Wiley College offered me a full ride for choir, for singing. So I came here, did my singing, and now I'm a graduate. So
I'm genuinely and proud to be a Wildcat. I love Wiley. But the history, to be a part of the school that history comes from, even more amazing.
It was just a special moment to be able to hear the things that they experienced during their time of going here. And it was wow, that's so much history, and it was truly a great experience for me.
The sit-ins downtown and the marches that started on campus that went to downtown, or the marches that started on campus and went down to the train station down the street, which at one point in time we were not allowed to catch trains with Caucasian people being on the same platform. We would have to wait in the parking lot. We couldn't go on the inside of the train station, couldn't go on, we couldn't be on a platform at all. That kind of stuff matters.
I didn't bother the whites. They didn't bother me. We had a certain place that we can go on the beach. It was on 29th Street. All the blacks went down there. You wasn't supposed to go no further than that or whatever. Well, they had a law in town that they called reckless eyeballs. If a black man was looking at a white woman walking down the boulevard and she had a bathing suit on, police see, he might come there and arrest you. And so it didn't make no difference with us because we were doing our own thing. We had sit-downs. We went into restaurants and sit down, and the police would try to arrest us and get out the restaurant, but we didn't make it wasn't no big issue. They called us names, this, that, and we just let it go in one ear and out the other,
Taking a deeper dive into the history of Wiley College, the students began to realize the rich history and importance of alumni like James Farmer Jr., who played a pivotal role in the civil rights movement.
One of the severest problems in the South is brutality practiced by law enforcement officers, such as an incident that occurred to me about a year and a half ago in Plaquemine, Louisiana. It was there that I had been in jail at the time of the March on Washington and was unable to be in Washington at that historic march. After getting out of jail in Plaquemine, Louisiana, I was confronted with a lynch mob, a most unusual lynch mob. It was composed of state law enforcement officers, state troopers, who were riding horseback, roaming through the streets, kicking open doors in the Negro community and screaming for my blood, screaming, "Come on out."
We got Philip Randolph, Whitney Young, James Farmer, Martin Luther King Jr., and John Lewis. I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't even know James Farmer was up there with them. Like,
right.
That's
because
insane.
every time, because it's always like every time you hear Martin Luther King,
that's it.
you
Like,
hear
there's nothing else.
No one else.
Me being on campus and talking to like so many older alumni or so many like people that went to school here, even if it was just for a semester, that grew up around that time, and he was the catalyst for a lot of that stuff. Too many people that fought, bled, died, read books they ain't feel like reading, shook hands they ain't feel like shaking. It's too much work to be done, and doing that work is important, but the work's not easy.
What does it mean to be black and free? The students would ask themselves and others this question many times. The meaning of freedom to black individuals is complex and multifaceted, shaped by centuries of systemic racism and discrimination. For black individuals, freedom may mean the ability to live without fear of violence or discrimination based on their race. It may mean the right to vote and participate fully in the political process. It may mean the right to express themselves freely and without censorship, and to practice their religion or beliefs without fear of persecution. It may mean the ability to build generational wealth and financial security, or having access to equal educational and employment opportunities.
Talking to Mr. Meredith, like hearing his story, it touched me differently knowing that the governor was on James Meredith, his back, just so, he couldn't go to school.
I went to Ole Miss because I had developed a plan to break the system of white supremacy. And that's what I was there for. Where they had to use the military to support my rights as a citizen. And this is to Martin Luther King's burning house. I have long believed that the only way blacks would ever be free if they freed themselves.
Classism is a real thing, and nowadays you want to flex how you are. I am 19 years old. I come from a two-parent household, both have college degrees. I had a whole bunch of people around me when I was younger, so when my mom or dad needed help, it was always given, And when I hear like the struggles that a lot of my peers had to go through, I don't feel a sense of being left out. I'm empathetic towards them. Like, I will never be able to understand where they came from, how they were raised, the troubles, how they felt. But what I can do is help them get their story heard, or if they want to help other kids who are going through the same things that they went through, I can help do that.
In a broader sense, freedom for black people may mean the recognition of their full humanity and worth as individuals. and the right to be treated with dignity and respect by society as a whole. And despite the many gains made in the struggle for civil rights and equality, systemic racism and discrimination continue to impact the lives of Black individuals and communities, especially those of Black men.
One specific day, I'm walking home, one headphone in, one headphone out. I hear a loud bang. Don't know where it came from. I look around, I don't see anything, so I keep walking. I see people running towards me. My first instinct is brace myself, so I grab the straps on my bag. I take my phone out of my pocket to change songs, and I look up, and there's a gun in my face. And the police officer is saying, get on the ground, he's cursing at me. I'm confused, not knowing, my hands is up. I'm like, sir, I don't know what's going on. There's other officers approaching me, guns in my face. I have at least 4 to 5 guns on me. The cop says, don't look at me. I don't know what's going on. He says it again, and a boot hits me in the face. Then I get kicked in the ribs by another cop, and my mouth is bleeding. I don't know what's going on, and I just want to get home.
Anytime I would get pulled over by a police officer when I was able to drive and had my driver's license, like, that was definitely a time I didn't feel free. I felt like every time I could possibly be killed.
In our area, in our culture, our identity and who we were so important. And our families pumped us up, so you didn't have to think about that. It makes no difference.
I feel like everything is just like a repeated cycle. It's not really much that's changing, but it's like much that's changing in the same sense. It's like, yes, we may be getting rights for different things on this side of the end, but people are still being killed by police officers simply for like a traffic light, or because their headlight was out. And so then they're never going home to their families or their parents again.
The students began to recognize that there was still much work to be done, but they were also proud to celebrate the recent wins as well. The passing of the Juneteenth holiday brought the subject of freedom to the national forefront once again. The Wiley College film crew trekked down to Galveston, Texas to learn more about the history of Juneteenth. But it was the role that Wiley College alumni Miss Opal Lee played in making Juneteenth a national holiday that excited the students the most.
People don't share stuff that isn't compelling content, right? So it has to be compelling. So now let's talk about your research, Camacho, on Opal Lee.
Miss Lee is an American activist and educator who received her bachelor's degree from Wiley College in 1952. In 2016, at 89 years old, Miss Lee began a campaign to make Juneteenth a national holiday. And in 2021, because of her efforts, President Joe Biden signed a bill into law, making Juneteenth a federal holiday.
I'm watching a video of Opal Lee, and she's talking about how hard it was to collect the signatures to make Juneteenth a holiday for freedom.
Yeah. And then she walked miles.
She walked miles, yeah.
That was not bad. But that's actually what makes this so powerful, because it would never cross nobody's mind in this day and time to do something like that. It's always just put it on social media and let it go from there. It's no, let's get out and do it today, like physically. Like nobody would do that today.
Even before her national notoriety, Opal Lee has always been a strong-willed force who has made a difference in her community.
People don't remember or didn't know that there were 250,000 enslaved people in Texas when General Gordon Granger with several thousand colored troops landed in Galveston. And those troops went through the neighborhood telling people that the enslaved were free. When they came in from their work, and Gordon Granger had nailed this general order to the door of what's now Reedy Chapel, African Methodist Episcopal Church, and somebody read that to them, They started celebrating, and we've been celebrating ever since. Juneteenth means freedom. And I don't mean just for black people. I mean for everybody. To be able to enjoy what the mainstream enjoys. And I feel like you young people in college here at Wiley, you're responsible for getting rid of these things. So you got work to do, work to do.
I feel like younger people don't want to talk to older people because there's like a disconnect. I feel like that disconnect comes from both parties not wanting to understand so that they can get the mental tools and the little nuggets of wisdom to help them achieve their own freedom.
You've got to keep your head to the grindstone, but you got to be able to help each other and to help your elders. And you need to learn from them. There's so much they can teach you if you just listen to them.
Learning from the elders gave the students a unique perspective, but in Atlanta, the voices of the millennials and Generation X fueled the conversations about economic and creative freedoms. Creative freedom is the ability of artists, writers, musicians, filmmakers, and other creators to express themselves and their ideas freely without undue censorship, restrictions, or limitations. It is the freedom to explore, experiment, and innovate in their work without fear of retribution or retaliation.
You are free to be creative. You are free to express yourself. You are free to do whatever your mind, your heart desire. There's not a box that you're closed in.
Getting to see Mr. Fabian and all of his artwork was pretty cool. I felt like my form of freedom was more artistic and creative like that. You can really tell how passionate he is through his artwork, and those murals, like they're so just outstanding. So I think that was probably my favorite part.
Creative expression to me is saying what you're saying with the tools that you've been given. So like, I'm a painter. I use color, form, and a lot of times portraiture to communicate the way I feel about a certain topic or how I want black people to be viewed in the public, reminding people of what the past was and who stood tall, or how I want them to be viewed in the future. Remember like Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech on I Have a Dream speech? It's really the first time anybody's ever talked about a future version of America where black people are not, looking over their shoulder, in danger. Like you kind of feel it here. When you get outside of the country, you feel a lightness that comes over you because you're not being pursued. And it's something that we live with here that we're not really aware of. I think young people have to get that feeling and then learn how to bring it here and let it grow.
You can't talk about freedom without highlighting the role that economics plays. Economic freedom often refers to the ability of individuals and businesses to participate in economic activities with minimal government intervention or restrictions. Many people of color do not have a sense of this type of freedom due to a system that was never designed from an equitable foundation. But people like Dr. Lakeisha Hallman, who migrated from Mississippi to Atlanta, have created a multi-state network of empowerment towards economic freedom.
I wanted to create something that operated where there is space and opportunity again. Space for black entrepreneurs, space for just black people, black families to be profitable, to thrive, and to operate in the highest level of excellence. But beyond the symbolic reasons, black businesses need an opportunity to be positioned for growth and excellence and sustainability. It is almost impossible to generate generational wealth if there are no access to capital, if we cannot begin to retell this story of what it means to buy and build black.
The Wiley College film crew found out that while the concept of freedom on the surface may seem straightforward, in practice, it can be complex and difficult to define. Working on this project, they realized the magnitude of what they were trying to cover. One thing became clear throughout the filming process: having access to equipment, mentorship, and resources presented their own elements of freedom.
This has been like the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Every bit of this trip, you know what I'm saying, it's just been crazy. the laptop's been crazy. Like we can do all the research that we need to do. We got iPads.
iPads,
phones,
Apple Pencil.
I want you to know, I felt when I got that pencil, I felt like the fanciest human on the planet. Tell me anything about myself.
I believe that we definitely feel the sense of freedom, but I do believe that we're moving towards more freedom. Yeah, but we definitely feel a sense of freedom, working together, doing this experience, yeah.
Debates about freedom will continue until the end of time, but they will always be an important part of political, social, and philosophical discourse. For these students, the word freedom will never be the same.
Young people right now, the way they feel about this country is they're noticing that it's unjust. There are so many issues within our country, within our political system. We're not the generation to just sit back and accept it. You know, that's why we're protesting more. That's why we're speaking out more. And the internet has been a great help to that too.
Where we're at now, I feel like we're at a place where we can really push through our social media, through the internet. How do we utilize that? And how do we further progress as a people with all of the information and knowledge that we have now? What do we do with it? How do we input it into our everyday lives? How do we teach that to our children now? How do we teach that to even the older generation? Because there's stuff that they don't even know that we can still teach them. There's so many outlets and so many avenues that we have now that we didn't have back.
We deserve certain freedoms, we deserve certain rights, we deserve certain things to do. And maybe that's where the term entitlement comes from. Oh, you think you deserve this because you're this? Yes, I do. Because I am a human. I have human rights.
Having heard stories from their elders, contemporaries, and fellow students, and also traveling cross-country seeing monuments from the struggle, the Wiley College film crew now has a unique perspective about freedom from an experience that will last a lifetime.